Today I would like to tackle the stock market. It has a history to it, and I like to try to put it in perspective, as usual. So the first place I'm going to start with is actually the original history of it. Okay, it didn't happen at the New York Stock Exchange. It didn't happen there first. It originated in 12th century France is where it originated. I'm looking online to help me along here because I'm not really into any of this personally, so I need a little help on this. But anyway, so it was these were men that traded debts, and they could be considered the very first brokers. And so that's where it first started in France. And then it went in the middle of the 13th century. Then it went to the Venetian bankers, the Venetian government. And then in 1602, you had the Dutch East India Company, which was basically Amsterdam, and I think also it was mainly in Amsterdam. It was an Amsterdam exchange, and then then the history kicked into place from there. I'm sure the Dutch. I'm gonna click on that real quick. I just want to see this. And pretty much okay. This was. And okay, so in the rest of Europe combined sent and the fleet. So you had the British East India Company, and you had the Dutch East India Company, but the British were also involved during that time as well. So that's pretty much it. Before the stock exchange in New York. And then in New York, the New York Stock Exchange was officially formed in 1773, whereas the London Stock Exchange, let's see here, wait 1 second, I'll find this here. 1 second. Yeah, you had the British East India Company, which existed before the New York Stock Exchange. So I just wanted to give it a little bit of a background because there's a point to be made. I'm talking about the stock market, but I'm speaking really specifically to America and the politics and the monetary policies that fell into place as far as where did the New York Stock Exchange came from. Okay, so I wanted to show that it didn't originate in America, of course. It originated actually in France. Okay, now in America, what happened was, one second. Okay. It's called the Buttonwood Agreement. And what it was, this is in New York, which took place on May 17, 1792, started the New York Stock and Exchange Board, now called the New York Stock Exchange. This agreement was signed by 24 stockholders outside of 68 Wall Street, New York, under a buttonwood tree. And the organization drafted its constitution on March 8, 1817, and named itself the New York Stock and Exchange Board. In 1863, this name was shortened to its modern form, New York Stock Exchange. Okay. The document agreement was as this. In brief, the agreement had two provisions. One, the brokers were to deal only with each other, thereby eliminating the auctioneers. And two, the commissions were to be 0.25%, and the agreement reads as follows, quote, "We, the subscribers, brokers for the purchase and sale of the public stock, do hereby solemnly promise and pledge ourselves to each other that we will not buy or sell from this day for any person whatsoever any kind of public stock at a less rate than 1/4% commission on the specie value of, and that we will give preference to each other in our negotiations. In testimony whereof we have set our hands this 17th day of May at New York, 1972. So you had certain individuals that signed that, okay? And later in 1793, they conducted, meaning the members of this particular agreement, they conducted their business inside the Tontine Coffee House. Now, let me just go a little further. I'm going to read something else. Then I'll delve into it, of course, with my own opinions, of course, right? Okay, so, and I'm going to bring it pretty much together on this point. There's a point to be made to this. It's not, everybody knows about the stock exchange. Everyone knows about the New York Stock Exchange. Everyone knows about all the markets and all this other crap that goes around the world, right? But very little people understand the essence and the beginning of it, okay? And why that beginning, the essential beginning, has a lot to do with the way the market is played out today, even though it appears that it's quite an open market and anyone can participate, which probably anyone can participate if you have enough money. But those that are really on the back end of it, or that is those that really control the show, those that just invest, if you and I invested, I don't invest, I never have, but let's say if I did, I would never ever be privy to the ones that are actually on the back end or on the behind the scenes that really control this entire enterprise, because that's what it is. Essentially, it's an enterprise. So anyway, I want to give it a little background as to why it's such a why it goes to all my other videos when I speak about the wealthy elite families. Because it's the wealthy elite families, believe it or not, once again, I must say it again, they control the entire stock market. Actually, they control all the stock markets around the world, these wealthy elite families, and I'm going to speak to that in one moment. So anyway, in 1790, the nation's first Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, I spoke about him before, issued $80 million in government war bonds to help pay the costs of the Revolutionary War of 1776. Shares were sold to the public at $100 each. The first stock was introduced a few years later when Hamilton established the first bank of the United States. Okay. Other banks and insurance company stocks were soon added to the available list of securities. Trading of this government stock, as well as stock in banks and insurance companies, was carried on in various coffee houses, auction rooms, headquarters and offices within the city of New York. In March 1792, 24 New York's leading merchants met secretly at Corey's Corey's Hotel. That's CORRE''S Hotel, to discuss ways to bring order to the securities business. And 2 months later, on May 17th, 1792, these men signed a document called the Buttonwood Agreement, named after their traditional meeting place under the buttonwood tree. The agreement stated that they would only trade securities amongst themselves, that they would adhere to set commissions, and that they would not participate in auctions. By 1793, there were too many brokers involved to meet under a tree. So they took space in an elaborate structure on the corner of Wall and Water Streets, called the Tontine Coffee House. Now, and as a side note, since 1990, Buttonwood Partners Incorporated has carried on the tradition of the locally owned and operated securities firm. Now, but that's really a side note. That's really I'm not really focused on that. Okay, we shouldn't be focused so much on that. But anyway, the point is, Alexander Hamilton, he issued $80 million in government war bonds. Okay? That's in 1790. In 1792, they decide, and I'm going to show you in a second, Alexander Hamilton, that little motherfucker, once again, was involved in it. That little Tory piece of shit traitor motherfucker. I can't say any worse than I can't ever speak. I mean, I can't even, the list is not long enough. There's not enough words in all the dictionaries around the world of how in the negative sense, how I think of Alexander Hamilton. He was a traitor to our country, and it lives on to this day with the Federal Reserve Board. Okay, there's no words to express the feelings and the thoughts that I have for this motherfucker. Okay, but anyway, with that said, so in 1790, he issued $80 million. Now, $80 million, and I'm gonna look that up, what that really is in today's cost, because $80 million, and you say $80 million, well, that's not much. God, anybody can have $80 million. Well, we're gonna see what it means in 2015, what that really was, what that real amount was. Okay, we're gonna find out what 80 million is. 80 million, right, year 2015. What, I'm going to try to find that, what that means in today's, one second, bear with me, we're going to find this one way or another. 80 million, $2,050. Do this here. Okay, it's got to be in here somewhere. I know there is, because I always do this once in a while, We'll find it. Oh, man. Okay. Wait, I'll find it. Just bear with me. As you know, bear with me. 80 million. It's got to be in billions this year, in today's... in billions, 2015. Gotta be. God, it won't even show it. It's crazy. All right, we're gonna find out. Oh my God. All right, I gotta find it. This is going to be great if I can find it, Because, I mean, 80 million back in 1790's got to be something like 300 billion now. It's got to be. All right. Okay, let me do this here. I'm going to do it differently. Just bear with me. We're going to find this baby out. You know, when I set my mind to something, we are going to find it out. Okay. I guess we're not going to find it out the way things are going here. Okay, wait. $80 million. 70.99. In 2015. Worth. I guess worth. It's not going to tell you. Okay, well, there you go. $1 in 1780 was worth today $17.24. So we're gonna, oh man, how do you do that? 1724. We're gonna do this. This is gonna be crazy. We're going to accomplish this goddamn thing. I'm telling you. Right. Times. 1 second. We're gonna do this one. I don't care, because this is gonna wake your ass up to the reality of what they did there. Okay, so here we are. We got it. Holy shit! Look at that. What that was worth. $13 billion, $939 million. Alexander Hamilton, that little fucking piece of shit. $80 million in 1790 was worth actually $13 billion in 2015. How do you like that fucking apples? $13 billion he issued in government war bonds. Okay? In other words, he sold the entire fucking American government out from under it. Okay? But that's one point to this whole picture of what's going on in the world that we live in today. Okay? So anyway, once again, I must stress this. In 1790, the nation's first Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, issued $80 million or $13 billion in government war bonds to pay for the costs of the Revolutionary War. $13 billion in 1790 was a lot of fucking money. Now, $13 billion today isn't much. I know that. You know, well, we got a $17 trillion deficit or debt. It's no big deal, right? But $13 billion back in fucking 1790 was a lot of fucking money, okay? At the same time, during that time frame, in March of 1792, 24 of the New York's leading merchants, I'm going to get to them in a moment, met secretly, just like they did in Jekyll Island. Remember? Met secretly in Jekyll Island to hatch the whole plan of the fucking Federal Reserve Board. See a little coincidence there? I don't think it's a coincidence. No, because they know what they were going to do. They're going to fuck us. They're going to fuck America inside out. And they couldn't just put it on the front page of the, I don't know what the hell kind of times they had back in those days, and back in those newspapers back in those days in the 1790s, they couldn't just put it on the front page. And, by the way, this is what we're going to do. You know what kind of fucking uprising they'd have? They'd fucking turn that U.S. Constitution inside fucking out, and they'd revert it right back to fucking Articles of Confederation. That's what they would have. That's what they would have did. But they didn't, so they met secretly at this hotel, Corey's C-O-R-R-E''S hotel. And they agreed. They made an agreement, a Buttonwood agreement. Just like they made an agreement at Jekyll Island, right? Eldridge and those motherfuckers with the Federal Reserve Board. Okay? It's a pattern there. If you have any intelligence, you'll see the pattern. There's a pattern there. Okay? So that's what happened in 1790 and 1792. They took America and they went like this to it. And they took it over. That's what they did, monetarily. Okay? Now, this is where it gets even interesting. This gets even more interesting. Okay? It gets even deeper, actually. I'm going to take you on a deeper, sort of on a deeper ride here. Okay? I'm going to read from this as well. And there's a key guy that's involved in here that brings it all the way up to today, especially through the Bank of America. Okay? A year later, trading in government bonds grew so brisk that the Buttonwood Group adjourned to an upstairs room of the new Tontine Coffee House, a 3-story brick structure at Wall and Water Streets, right near Hamilton's New York home. Right next to his home. Interesting. Its first president was Archibald Gracie. That's Archibald. Last name is Gracie. Now, that's probably no one knows about that guy. But I'm going to tell you all about this guy. This motherfucker. He's just fucking as bad as fucking Hamilton. And he also, by the way, was not born in America. He was born over there somewhere in fucking Europe. Just like fucking Alexander Hamilton. He was born in the British West Indies. Okay? Anyway. Its first president was Archibald Gracie, whose East River mansion was to house New York mayors. Ooh, there must have been a lot of politicians involved in that shit, huh? Now get a kick out of this. You're gonna love all this shit. They're gonna fucking blow your mind. People think of the stock. As a side note, people say, I should really get to this later. Well, I'm gonna just give you a little tease. People think stock market, watching Greece go under and all this shit. That's all planned. You think that they're going to let a whole country go under just for the hell of it? They got a lot of things cooking for fucking Greece. And they're going to rearrange those fucking stocks inside out and outside in through the stock exchanges or stock market. But I'll speak to that in a little while. Anyway, get back to reality here. Local wits christened the Tontine Coffee House, quote, Script Castle. That's SCRIP Castle, unquote. In honor of Hamilton's bank script. Hamilton had a bank script that he used, which had triggered, I'll go on a little bit, which had triggered expanded share trading. So, Hamilton's the first secretary of the First Bank of the United States. And he has a bank script. Okay? It's a CRIP here. Like I said, I don't know too much about monetary things, but I certainly know how to put history together. Okay. So what a scrip is it's a term for any substitute for legal tender and is often a form of credit. Okay, so it's basically a currency is what it is, okay? So local wits christened the Tontine Coffee House script Castle in honor of Hamilton's bank script, which had triggered expanded share trading. Henceforth, Wall Street would signal much more than a short, narrow lane in lower Manhattan. It would symbolize an industry, a sector of the economy, a state of mind, and it became synonymous with American finance itself. Okay, so here you got, there's a key to this one. I don't know if you have unlocked it yet, but Archibald Gracie and Alexander Hamilton, two huge traitors to what they fought for in the American Revolution. Okay? Now remember those two names. Now, let's get to Archibald Gracie. Probably no one's ever taught him in history. in schools. I'm sure he's not even mentioned in one fucking sentence in any school book. Gracie was the son of a weaver named William Gracie of the Dumfries in Scotland. In 1776, he moved to Liverpool and clerked for a London shipping firm. He didn't even fight in the fucking war. He didn't even fight in 1776. In April 1784, he sailed to America with a cargo of goods that were his own profit stock. He used the proceedings to invest in a mercantile company in New York City. He later moved to Petersburg, Virginia, and engaged in the export of tobacco to Great Britain. Here we go. In 1793, isn't that amazing? 1790, 1792, 1793, boy, they had a lot of shit cooking on the stove, didn't they? In those early 1790s, man, they had a lot of shit cooking on the stove. Boy, they were having a fun old time. I'm sure they had a lot of fucking cognacs. In 1793, he moved to New York and became a commissary merchant and ship owner. Archibald Gracie and Sons, East India merchants. Oh, East India. Didn't we just mention about the East India? Oh, okay. Here we go. Ready? Hold on to your seats. Gracie was a business partner of... Would you imagine? I'm gonna put a little silence on that one. Gracie was a business partner of... let's give 10 seconds of that. See if you can figure that one out. Gracie was a business partner of Alexander Hamilton. Okay, wait. We're going to get better here. It's getting better. You can't get no better than this, right? No, it's going to get much better. Much better. And a friend of John Jay. And what was John Jay? He was one of the founding fathers of the United States. He was a signer of the Treaty of Paris. And he was the first Chief Justice of the United States. Oh, yeah, I wonder why. Wonder what was going on with his family, huh? Oh, yeah, he was also a slaveholder, of course. He was a member of the Church of England. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, we got you. The Secretary of Foreign Affairs. He was a Federalist, okay. Jay joined Alexander Hamilton and James Madison in advocating for a stronger government than the one dictated by the Articles of Confederation. Very interesting, very interesting. He was the governor of New York. And thank goodness he died in 1829, the fucking asshole. Anyway, so... But anyway, let's get back to what I'm speaking about. Well, you know, I'm being quite facetious in this, and the reason why is because when I put all this together, when I started reading it, I wanted to go a little deeper into it. I never read about the stock market. I always avoided that fucking thing. I always thought, what the fuck are they doing up there, playing with money, you know? And and I know it runs the world, okay? And I don't know Federal Reserve Board has a lot to do with it and all that shit, you know, how the stocks go up and down with the interest rates and all that bullshit. I know that. Everybody knows that, right? But there had to be something behind it to bring it to where it's at now. So then I started reading, and I started, wait, hold it. Oh no. no, tell me it's Alexander Hamilton. And when I read about him being have to do with the first, well, of course, he's the first Bank of the United States, and he was the co-owner of the Bank of New York. Okay, he's a financial asshole. I understand, no problem. But when I started reading that he had something to do with the stock market, in the beginning, the New York Stock Exchange was actually created as well by him. And then I started reading Archibald Gracie, and then I started looking at the history here. I said, holy shit. Anyway, make a long story short. I should make a very long story short here. But anyway, Archibald Gracie was one of the directors of the first bank of the United States. A director. He directed it where it was going to go. Okay, now. Put that feather in your cap. Now, it gets interesting here. Very interesting here. If you follow his lineage line, if you all the way through his lineage, his daughter Eliza married Charles King, which was the president of Columbia University. Another daughter, Sarah, married U.S. Congressman James Gore King. There's more to it than this. There's a point to be made, what I'm about to say. Gracie's grandson, Archibald Gracie III, a general in the Confederate Army. He was a Confederate. He was part of the Confederate Army. Oh no, take down that flag. We can't have that up there. Was killed at the siege of Petersburg during the American Civil War. Great-grandson Archibald Gracie IV was a military officer and writer who survived the sinking of the RMS Titanic in 1912. One of Gracie's IV's fellow travelers of the Titanic was John Jacob Astor IV, great-grandson of frequent Gracie Mansion visitor and personal friend of Gracie I, John Jacob Astor. Now, if anyone knows about the Astors, oh my God. These motherfuckers, holy shit. I don't know if anyone, I shouldn't even get into, maybe I'll save Astors for another fucking video. But this motherfucker had money coming out of your fucking ears. This motherfucker was. You should. Astor is Astor. These motherfuckers. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into that. So, point is what I'm saying there is they have a select. These wealthy elite families, okay? They're friends of each other, associates of other, business partners. Freaking Alexander Hamilton's a business partner of this Archibald Gracie guy that was one of the people or persons that created the New York Stock Exchange during about the same time the first Bank of the United States was created by Alexander Hamilton. Starting to see the picture how it all molds together? Everyone knows everyone else. Everyone pats everyone else on the back. Now, go a little step further. Sort of meld it together. Let's bring it together. Archibald Gracie, a director of the first bank of the United States. Oh, excuse me. Archibald Gracie, director of the Bank of America, was a Scotsman who soon, I sort of read all this, but anyway, who soon after the Revolution came to New York, where he amassed a fortune as merchant and ship owner. He established with his son-in-law, James G. King, a business in Liverpool known as the firm of King and Gracie. Okay. Let me go a little bit more. Second. A little more down there. Something else to add. I guess there isn't anything else to add. Might be something else to add. Nope, I think that's pretty much it. Anyway, I did have something else to add. Sorry about that. Yes, I did. Okay. Trading at the Tontine Coffee House continued until 1817. The growth of the Tontine's trade proceedings had affected the creation of the New York Stock Exchange, New York Stock and Exchange Board. The New York Stock Exchange and Board, New York Stock and Exchange Board is recognized as the precursor to the present-day New York Stock Exchange, which is the largest stock exchange in the world. Now, so here you have in 17, let me bring that up again. Make sure I have all this here so we know what's going on. In 1790, Alexander Hamilton becomes the first Secretary of the Treasury. He also begins the first bank of the United States. Within the same period, now remember, Alexander Hamilton is a business partner of Archibald Gracie. Archibald Gracie, along with others, created the Bretton Woods Agreement, which eventually will turn into the New York Stock Exchange. Okay? So, and those, like Alexander Hamilton, let me see if I could bring him up. Let me bring him up. I should have had this up already, but there's a lady that he married into a family. This will further blow your mind. Alexander Hamilton. Let me see. Wait. Let me go into a little of his personal life. I don't think Alexander Hamilton would mind if I go into a little bit of his personal life, would he? I don't think so. Okay. He had married a woman by the name of Elizabeth Schuyler. That's Schuyler. It was a daughter of Philip Schuyler and Catherine Van, I can't even say that, Rensseler. And they were wealthy, elite families. Plenty of money amassed, plenty connections with Europe. Okay, let's go into her father. Okay, Philip John Schuyler was a general in the American Revolution and a United States Senator from New York. Okay, I could trace his history back, but we don't have all the time in the world. I don't want to make this video 10,000 years old here, but anyway, let me just get. I should have had this prepared. I didn't think I'd wind up doing this here as well. But anyway, the Schuylers were extremely wealthy. And not only that, they were loyalists to the crown. They were basically Tories to the crown of England, just like Alexander Hamilton. Actually, Alexander Hamilton was really a Tory or pretty much all his life. And then he did fight in the American Revolution. And then he was actually fighting for the Patriots. So, you know, who was not the Patriots. What am I saying? He was fighting against against Britain. And then afterwards, then he married this Elizabeth Schuyler, And I guess it sort of brought all those memories of his of being a Tory and his allegiances and all this bullshit back up again. And then he started to be very, like he was, a very centralized government. And let's get the first bank of the United States, and let's control the people and the government that way. After he married, and Philip Schuyler was a Tory. He was a loyalist to the Crown of England. You know, people have this concept that everyone that was in America was opposed the Church of England, opposed King George. They all have this thing, like everyone in America during 1776 fought against the Crown. And even though there were some that did pick up arms and fight against the Crown, even though they were pretty much loyal to the Crown, majority of them did not. Majority of them did not. And after the war, they had a lot of bitterness. And they were like, well, we'll just wait our time out, but eventually we're going to turn this shit back around. Which they did. They did. The Articles of Confederation only lasted for about 10 years. And then 1789, they had the U.S. Constitution. And they only had the Articles. They didn't even have the Bill of Rights, which was basically for the people. But they turned it right back around to their favor. Why? Well, because they got wealth and power, and they could control newspapers and people's minds and how they think, like they do today. And got the people thinking, and got the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, and they went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and before you know it, you wound up with the same form of government you had basically in England, except they named it differently. United States Congress is basically Parliament. Then you got the U.S. Senators, which is basically House of Lords, and you got the U.S. Representatives, which are basically House of Commons. Then you have your judicial branch, and you fucking have your Congress. And then you have your fucking executive branch, which is basically a fucking king. And through his executive orders and all this other bullshit, he's basically a king. He's just like a pseudo-king. He's today, Obama and his asshole friends or whatever, his associates, they're all like pseudo-kings. From Bush, Reagan, all these motherfuckers. They're like pseudo-kings. They're not kings, but they would like to be a king. I'm sure. Like when Obama's taking a shit on the toilet, I'm going to try to do this with a straight face. I mean, he's as human as anyone else with that, and he has a lot of power. So he's taking a shit on the toilet, and he's thinking to himself, and it's quiet, probably it's 2 a.m, he's taking a shit on the toilet. He's thinking to himself, I've done 6-7 years in office. I should by now be a king. I wish I was a king. Things would be so much easier if only I was a king. Even a prince, but I'd take a king. I'd rather be a king than a prince, because a prince still is subordinate to the king. King Obama. Oh man, that even sounds good. King Obama. Wow. And that's basically what he thinks. And they all think that. King Bush, King Reagan, all. Believe me, if they could get away with it, we'd just have kings. Anyway, so the point of this video that didn't really go as well as I wanted to, because I had to insert all my stupidity. Not stupidity, my facetiousness in there. Because when I was, I started out just reading about the stock market. And then this fucking Buttonwood Agreement popped up. And then Alexander Hamilton. And then fucking Archibald Gracie. And how they worked hand in hand. And I was like, holy shit. And that stuff goes on to this day. Like, for instance, I'm going to sort of end this video because pretty much we get the point that the same players yesterday were the same players today, except they have different names or different titles or classifications. It's the same thing. For instance, Greece. Greece is the new bad boy on the stock exchange, right? So the people vote against, right? You know, funny thing, you always hear Obama say, let the people in Iraq, let the people in Syria, let the people in Iran speak. Let them speak up, let them have revolution, let them open their mouths, let them tell the government to go fuck themselves. But, on the other hand, the people that vote in Greece, apparently they don't have the same say as the people in Iran, Iraq, Syria, or wherever the hell else. You ever notice that? Or Libya. Remember Libya? Oh, the suppression of the people. Oh, the suppression of the people. We must free those people in Libya. Well, the people in Greece don't want to be governed by the euro anymore. So the people spoke up and decried and say, we don't want to be governed by the euro. We want to have our own monetary system, our own currency or whatever, in our own name. And Obama and all these other motherfuckers are like, that's not going to be a good idea, guys. It's going to fuck up our markets. But we'll figure it out. We haven't figured out. It's not like it comes to you. You and I comes overnight to the newspapers. You read on USA Today, New York Times, Philadelphia Inquirer, LA Times, or whatever the hell you read it from, right? It comes out, whoa, they made a vote. No. Believe me, the people that are in power knew about this shit probably for months, if not years. They watch it. They watch all the numbers. That's all they do, watch numbers. Oh, it's 0.7%. Oh, it's 5%. Oh, we're watching the numbers. It's like a ping pong match, They watch all the numbers, and they see where Greece is going. They probably knew that people were going to vote against it, against the euro. But funny thing is, it's okay for Britain to be against the euro. Britain is governed by the pound. They're not governed by the euro. But it's not okay for Greece to. Ah, I see. Interesting. So, this whole thing with Greece, in about a month's time, it'll be yesterday's news. And, if the Grecians, which were one of the oldest civilizations in the world, by the way, one of the oldest ones that have been around for a very long time, that have lasted throughout the centuries, if not 2,000-3,000 years. If the people decide not to fucking have the euro, then fucking so be it. Too goddamn bad. But you know what they're going to do? This is my key, really, to the whole fucking video. I wrote down, I have this little list of things I like to speak on YouTube. And I was going to talk about the stock market, just talk about general things. But then I found this history and I was like, shit. Then I had to go through that. But anyway, the thing is these people that play the stock market, okay, it's like somebody going, I don't go to casinos, but some people do. And if you go to casinos with a lot of money and you can wait out your time, you can make a lot of fucking money in a casino. Like if you're a billionaire in a casino, you can make a shitload of money. On the other hand, if you only have about $1,000, you're up shit creek. So the thing is, it's like Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett takes these long-ass bets. He makes these long-term investments. And he waits. He sits on it. And eventually the fucking egg is going to hatch. It's going to incubate. And that's what he does. He waits a long time. See, he's got that kind of money and mustard to be able to wait for so fucking long. He could wait fucking 10 years, of course, in 10 years probably in the grave. But I'm sure he passed that on to his heirs. But still, his investments are the way they are because he's waits so long. He's able to wait. And there's a lot of, and he's only rich, he's not wealthy elite. But still, the wealthy elite families, on the other hand, they sit on shit that lasts for hundreds of years, man. they have stock that's probably over 100 years old. You're never going to hear about it, though. Believe me, you should try to Google that shit. That's even public information. But I'm sure they have stocks, man. They have so much stocks, it's insane. Not only that, they own the governments through bonds and all that shit. That's why America's so has a deficit or a debt in $17 trillion. This is what they do. They own governments through bonds, and then they own the stock markets through stocks and through interests and through brokerage fees, and they own the fucking brokerage. You got I'm sure the brokerage firms have an association that they belong to, and I'm sure the elite wealthy elite families have codified all those firms into one association, which they basically control. So it's a lot easier to control just one major association of all these firms and control these fucking firms at once. Drive anyone bananas if you tried to do that, So the point of this screw he has, you can see how much I care about the stock market, because I think it's fucking rigged. It's a rigged market. It's rigged. Like I said, the wealthy elite families, they control, even to the time of Alexander Hamilton, to the time of Archibald Gracie. You understand? They controlled way back. They controlled back to the Church of England, to even fucking ass King George, man. Do you know how old these fucking stocks are, and how long they played the game, man? It's just a fucking game. That's all it is. Winners and losers. Winners and losers. Winners and losers. Isn't that a game? When you play a game, you always have a winner or you're a loser. Right? And if you have a tie break, then you have another, what is it, like in baseball, right? You have 9 innings. You have tie, you have to play a 10th inning. And then a 11th, then a 12th. So there's always winners and losers. And even anything, in courtrooms. You always have, even if U.S. Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court itself, winners and losers. It's stacked that way. You got 9 justices. 9 justices. You're always going to have a 5-4 vote. Somebody's going to win. It's always that way. Always going to have winners and losers. Even on such a sacred fucking, in my book these days, especially politicized fucking U.S. Supreme Court, still stacked. The deck is still stacked. I like them fucking apples. The deck is still stacked, even on the U.S. Supreme Court. Even on the fucking U.S. Senate. If they have a 50-50 tie, who do they bring in? I think they bring in, I don't know how that works. I think it's like the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court comes in and breaks the tie. There's always someone going to break that tie. So you always have winners or losers. And the wealthy elite families are always winning. Always winning. And the rest of the schmucks always losing. And they take their fucking stock out of here, and they take their stock out of there, and they shift it around, they put it in this stock. That's why the stock's always going up and down, because they take a little here, they move it a little here, they move it a little here, they move it a little there, up and down, up and down. Sometimes they take a lot more out. Sometimes they put a little bit more in. But the wealthy elite families, those motherfuckers, them fucking stocks are pretty level, man. They stay level. They stay level. They never lose money. Even if the whole entire New York Stock Exchange went down to zero tomorrow at 12 noon, the entire New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and S&P, whatever the hell that is, Standard or whatever, all those numbers run down to complete zero, guess who would be the winner still? The wealthy elite families. They still have the fucking money. Why? I'll tell you why. Because they got money in land, in minerals, in natural resources, in government bonds. And if you can't pay the government bond, you only have two alternatives. A government and its people only has two alternatives to get themselves out of those bonds, that bond debt. You either go to war or you're taken over completely by whoever owns the bonds. So you always have winners or losers. That really was what I wanted to do this video on. You always have winners or losers, but the wealthy elite families are steady at the top. It's like a fucking, like, you know when you see your heartbeat go up and down like this on the machine. Well, their heartbeat is flat, and I don't mean they're dead. Actually, they're well alive. They're very well alive. But that's what it's like. Very flat. Because it's not really about money with them. And I don't know how many times I have to stress that. It's about power. And power, you can't buy. You can't buy power. I'm sorry about that. You and I, Now, the masses can buy power if they come together. But, America's pretty fucked up on that. Because they have so many parties to choose from, and this and that, and this and that. But power is where it's at. Power, connections, and you don't like join the club or anything. You got to marry into that shit. You got to marry into the wealthy elite families, like Warren Buffett. He's like a puppet. He's like He's probably worth about 22 cents on the market, actually, compared to the wealthy elite families. I'd say he's about worth 22 cents. Yeah. He's about as worth. He's really. This is how much his worth is. Not the eyeglasses itself, but actually the frames to his eyeglasses. That's how much he's worth. He's only worth the eyeglass frame. That's how much he's worth. Now, they might be expensive eyeglass frames. They might be, $1,000. But that's about all he's worth. No, he's worth about 22 cents. That's what I'll leave him at that. The wealthy elite families can put his ass out of business, put him out. He has like list A stocks, like A stocks, and they're like $212,000 a stock for one stock, right? But these wealthy elite families put his ass out in about, 22 minutes and 22, my dog over there, sorry. In 22 minutes, he'll be out, and because he's only worth 22 cents to them. He's only worth 22 cents, and he'd be out of the picture in 22 minutes. They'll put a little imprint on his forehead saying 2222. 2222. Actually, I hope he's known as 2220. His title will be 2222. That'll be his title, 2222. Anyway, once again, this video is going on way too long. I don't even know if I should upload this, but I'll put it up anyway because the history to it was rather interesting. And but I'm very facetious about money, especially this type of money, and it's just a one big game, and it's about winners or losers, except for the wealthy elite families, not the wealthy elite. A lot of people say, "Oh, there's wealthy elite." No, it's wealthy elite families. The whole phrase goes together. You don't have wealthy elite. You have wealthy elite families. It's passed on through generation to generation. They maintain that wealth. Not Zuckerberg, not Buffett, not fucking Gates. Gates could have about $17 trillion in his bank account. Just in his checking bank account. Just in his checking account. He could have $17 trillion. He's still poor compared to the wealthy elite families. So the stock market is really a joke. It really is a joke. And the real wealth in that stock market remains the same. And it's not fucking Buffett's fucking stock that's worth $212,000. That's a poster boy fucking stock. No, I'm talking about serious wealth. The wealthy elite families wanted to say, tomorrow the stock market is going to collapse completely. It will happen. Anyway, and on that, you guys have a good day.